Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All right, I'm guessing we're on 32. Tapas, you know. 33?
32.
33, right?
32.
32. You actually wrote it down. We have someone who wrote it down, Tapas. We did 33. She was there, ether in the space. She knows. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 11th day of August 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer, and Consciousness. Text number 33 on page 563. Excuse me. Yata Sarvakatam Saukshmyad Akasham Nopalipyate Sarvatravastito Dehe Tatatma Nopalipyate Yata Sarvakatam Saukshmyad Akasham Nopalipyate Sarvatravastito Dehe Tatatmanopalipyate Yata Sarvakatam Saukshmyad Akasham Nopalipyate Sarvatravastito Dehe Tatatmanopalipyate Yata sarvakatam saukshmyad akashang nopalipyate sarvatravastito dehe tatatma nopalipyate. Go ahead. Yata sarvakatam saukshmyad akashang nopalipyate sarvatravastito dehe tatatma nopalipyate. Ishtadev. Yata sarvakatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvatravastito dehe tatatma nopalipyate. Okay. Yata sarvakatam saukshmyad akasham nopalipyate tata sarvastito dehe. That's it. Malo palipyate. Dhanabai, you go. Can you go? Prabhu. He sits there. Yeah. So try to get a chair. You can use the chair, just pull it over to the side. Yeah. Yata sarvakatam saukshmyad akasham no palipyate sarvatravastito gehe tatatma no palipyate. Okay. Yata as sarvakatam, all pervading. Saukshmyat, due to being subtle. Akasham, the sky, never upalipyate. Get his book on the right page. Dimitri, get his book on the right page. You can. No upalipyate mixes sarvatra, everywhere. Avastitaha, situated. Dehe, in the body. Tata, so atma, the self. Never upalipyate, mixes. Translation. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. Purport. The air enters into water, mud, stool, and whatever else is there. Still it does not mix with anything. Similarly, the living entity, even though situated in various varieties of bodies, is aloof from them due to his subtle nature. Therefore, it is impossible to see with the material eyes how the living entity is in contact with this body and how he is out of it after the destruction of the body. No one in science can ascertain this. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chukshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything. So I mentioned, I forget if it was the morning or evening class, I'm getting mixed up with so many classes, that asango yayam purushaha. Does anyone remember that phrase? Asango yayam purushaha. This ayam means this. This soul is asanga. Asanga is aloof. Does not really mix or associate with this material energy, although in close proximity to it, so to speak. And he identifies that soul as the Purusha. The Purusha is the soul in the body who's trying to enjoy. We're actually Prakriti, but we're acting like Purusha. So this is an important concept because it means that just as we never are born and we never die, we never actually mix with this material energy. But because we forget our spiritual nature, we forget Krishna, we identify with the material body and things related to it. It is as if it's like a dream-like existence. Just like in a dream, you can take on a whole different identity. It can be a different time, a different place, and you can take those relationships very seriously. because that's all you know at that time. You've forgotten your actual, so-called actual life, completely out of the picture. And then when you wake up, the dream world, you may remember a few things for a little bit, and then it's gone. You forget about it. So Prabhupada talks about how you have the night dream, but you have the daydream too. The daydream is no more real than the night dream, but it certainly seems to be more real, but it's not. So this is a very enlightening verse. Now, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body. That's certainly true. But in the purport, we find no soul mixes with the body. We're all set up here. No soul in any species of life actually mixes with the body. But we're associated with it because of our consciousness, the mind. The mind is what keeps us bound up to the body and its interests. So the key is the mind. In any yoga practice, the mind can be the worst friend or worst enemy or the best friend of the living entity. So generally it's the worst, in the material world, it's the worst enemy. Because all of the, we read about this, so you probably forgot about it. I distinctly remember this when I was proofreading the fourth canto back in 1974, before it was published. And there's this whole allegory, remember? The allegory of Puranjan and Narada Muni speaking to King Prachinabhari. And after the whole allegory is done, King Prachinabhari asks, well, how can the living entity carry so many things forward from one life to the other? How does that work? And so Narada Muni explains that it's the mind that is filled with all of these impressions and all of these that we don't even access normally. There's a whole lot of things that are deep in the subconscious. So Prabhupada usually doesn't use that phrase, but that's what he's talking about. That when we leave the body, when we leave the brain, say, which is as well as a tool of the mind, it's also a restriction on the mind. They come out suddenly. They're very vivid, and you're confronted with, things that you were really trying to and hoping to forget. So many, and you do forget them from one birth to another, but they can also come, flooding in. So it's a very complicated thing, and he says that the highly self-realized souls can become aware of all of these unfulfilled desires and buried thoughts and all these memories, because they can handle them, because they're fixed in Krishna consciousness. They can confront these myriad of desires and reject them easily. They don't get bewildered by it, you see. So, the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body, though situated in that body. That's certainly true. But what I think, what's happening here, you remember I mentioned to you how there's a series of verses. If we go back, let's see, starting with 29 is one, 28. These all verses have the word pashyati in them, seeing. Those who are self-realized can see the soul and the supersoul within the body, right? That was one of them. We go back to 28. One who sees the supersoul accompanying the individual soul in all bodies, who understands that neither the soul nor the supersoul within the destructive body is ever destroyed, actually sees. Next verse 29, again about seeing. One who sees the supersoul, equally present everywhere, doesn't degrade himself by the mind. Next verse, again seeing at the end of the verse. One who can see that all activity is performed by the body and the soul does nothing at all, actually sees. And then anupashyati, again 31, there's 4 in a row. When a sensible man ceases to see different identities. So there's 4 of them. But Prabhupada continues with the seeing, those with the vision of eternity, 32. You see that? There's no mention there of seeing there, but Prabhupada's carrying it forward, and he carries it forward to 33 also. There was one who is the soul situated in Brahman vision does not mix with the body. Actually, what I think what Prabhupada is getting at here is that the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the soul does not mix with the body, though it's situated in that body. Those souls situated in Brahman vision can see this. Doesn't that make sense? Because right in the purport, he's saying that no body, actually, no soul ever mixes with the body, with any of the bodies, 8,400,000 bodies. So this non-mixing is important, because when we're fixed in that ideal, that understanding, then we can truly stop identifying our interests with the interests of the body. The body is a temporary vehicle. We all have one. We're all fortunate to have human bodies. That's why we're interested in things like this. And the great value of the human body is that we can use it to perfect our Krishna consciousness, to develop our love for Krishna. None of the other bodies can help us with that. They don't have the intelligence. They're too much fixed in the bodily kind. You're in a cat's body, you got to act like a cat for the duration of that term, right? We've all been there, don't you remember? Maybe not, but it's pretty obvious, right? So, unfortunately, this age especially, people act like animals. They're really controlled by the lower self. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and all varieties of that. And so they're completely unaware of this higher reality. But that's the whole purpose of human life. There is a purpose to it. It's not simply a fancy way of trying to enjoy and dominate this material world. It's a great gift. And we're enjoined from the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra to use it. And this idea of not wasting time, because it doesn't take a genius or a self-realized person to understand that the time is expiring in any body you have. And so, what do we have at our disposal? A certain amount of time by which we can use, under direction of Shastra and Guru and Sadhu, this human body in order to achieve self-realization and end our imprisonment in a round of bodies one after another. There's a beautiful verse in the 87th chapter of the 10th canto. Some of you, that number may mean something. Those are the prayers of the personified Vedas. It's amazing. The 10th canto is filled with all kinds of wonderful pastimes, Vrindavan Leela, Dwarka Leela. There's a lot of philosophy woven in. But perhaps the most philosophically, how shall I say, intricate chapter is right there at chapter 87, near the end of the 10th canto. And it has a unique meter. I remember when we first encountered it, this is the second time since I've been here that we're going through the whole Bhagavatam. And it's way long, these verses. It's going to be very hard, to write them on our little board there and actually chant them. But one of them sticks in my mind. I said, I got to memorize these, and I started memorizing, but they're pretty big. And I have parts of many, but I have this one down, and it's exactly pertinent to this subject. So they're praying. This is the personified Vedas, the Upanishads, praying to Mahavishnu before the creation, actually. And what this Upanishad says is, Tvanandupatam kulayam inamatma sarit priyavat chadati taton muketu hihite priyapanicha nabadadamanta ho asadupasana mahano yadunshaya brahme urubaye kusharir brata. So you can see that. There's a unique beat to it. So what they're saying there, Tvanandupatam kulayam, idam, this human form of life is especially suited for serving you, O my Lord. And when one uses his form, his gross and subtle body, the senses, the mind, intelligence, in serving you, then the body becomes very dear, not in the ordinary conditioned sense, but as a way, a vehicle for serving Krishna. Just like the paraphernalia that we have, like this temple, the deity, everything is spiritual, and therefore we should highly respect it and use it properly, and we should do everything we can to maintain the temple. It's very precious, not just for ourselves, but for anyone who comes in contact. So similarly, the body is like a temple. That's what the tilak is all about, right? The temple of the body. Why is it a temple? Krishna's in there, we're in there, and we're using it for Krishna's service. So and these marks are meant to remind us that's what it's meant for. You look in the mirror, you look at some of your God brothers, you see, there's a tilak. Yes, that's what the body is made for. So that's what this verse says. When one properly uses this body, which is very suitable for serving Krishna, for that purpose, then it becomes very dear and one's best friend. And you, as the super soul, Lord, you are acting from within to guide. And so there's all of this harmony, everything's going nicely. But alas, nabatadamantaho Asadupasanayatman, those who do not take their pleasure in serving you, very important point. Those who do not take their pleasure in serving you, and instead, and this is the key phrase, this one always sticks in my mind, Asadupasanaya. Asat upasanaya. They worship the impermanent. They're worshiping mammon. In the Bible is mammon. The god of material things, wealth and enjoyment. Asadupasanayatmahano, which is virtually committing spiritual suicide. We can't kill the soul never dies, but you can postpone for millions of births by ignoring spiritual life. So then what happens? They wander throughout so many different species trying to fulfill these unfulfillable material desires, taking on all kinds of bad bodies, not this favorable human body. Kusharira means subhuman and animal bodies. Prabhupada's favorite species is either a stool-eating hog or a worm and stool. Yeah, just imagine. We've been there. Aren't you glad that Krishna provides forgetfulness also? I am. Urubaye. All these bodies are filled with fear and anxiety. The human body also, in the material sense. But you can imagine just living, in a horrible situation like that. So this is a stark instruction. The Bhagavatam is filled with instructions like this. Here's your choice. You can use this human body for its proper purpose and be progressively peaceful and happy, even in this world, what to speak of going back to Godhead. Or you can misuse it by trying to satisfy the senses and ensuring, according to Rishabdev, we're going to, a couple of chapters now in the morning, we're going to be with the teachings of Rishabdev, very key chapter. Prabhupada, when he was touring India, he would go from city, and when that Bhagavatam came out, the volume with the 5th canto and Rishabdev's teachings, he gave, I don't know how many, at least a dozen. Each city he would go to would give the lecture on this one verse. The 5th chapter, 5th canto, 1st verse. Rishabdev's injunctions to his son. And a lot of times you'll find, because he's acting as a guru, for all of his sons, 100 sons, one of who was Bharad himself. He got the 9 Yogendras in the audience, also wonderful. Very strong words at the beginning. The guru often chastises, just like Krishna when he started speaking to Arjuna. You're lamenting for what's not worthy of grief. You're acting like a pundit, but you're no pundit, And Narada Muni, when he comes down, and Vyasadeva he had written everything except the Bhagavatam, and he was still unsatisfied. And so Narada Muni could understand that, and so he appears before him. And are you satisfied with having the mind and the body of the object of self-realization? He was saying all this karma kanda business, that he had written. A lot of the majority of the Vedas is really that. And then he says, the first of the main instructions, Nayadvachas chitta padangare yasho, that literature, and he's talking about a lot of literature that he wrote, which may be perfectly composed, highly, aesthetic, pleasing, but it doesn't deal with Krishna. It's like a pilgrimage place for crows, and anyone who knows crows, they hang out in the garbage heap, right? That's their heavenly planet, so to speak. So he's strongly saying, you've written all this literature, but you haven't written a book that deals wholly and solely with Krishna and his incarnations and his service and his devotees like that. So that's the Bhagavatam. It's the Nigamakalpatado Galitam Palam. Anyone know what that means? You should know. Yes, go ahead. Do you have a mic? We need a mic. There we go.
Nigama, I don't know what is Nigama, but Kalpataro is our fulfilling tree.
Yeah, but it's describing the Bhagavatam itself. Nigamas are all the Vedic literature. So all the Vedic literature is like a desire tree. You want Karmakanda? We got Karmakanda. You want Ayurveda? We got Ayurveda. Medical? You want to learn about the past and the future? We got Jyotish. How about a little military instruction? Yeah, we got Dhanurveda. It's a desire tree. But this is the ripened fruit of the desire tree. That is the most valuable, most tasty and sweet. So then there's an injunction here in this verse. This is the 3rd verse of the whole Bhagavatam. And it's indicative of what the Bhagavatam is going to be. The first two verses are really official. Here's the subject matter. Janmadyasya yaton vayaditadatashtesha is defining that this Brahman that we've enjoined you to look for in the Brahma Sutras, you'll find it here in the Bhagavatam. And it starts with the same words as the second sutra. Janmadyasya yata. So the verse begins, Janmadyasya yaton vayaditadatashtesha, and it's describing Krishna in the spiritual world. He's enlightened Brahma in the heart. He's all of his energies are here. He's situated there, completely undisturbed because he's enjoying with his friends and everything. It gives a little summary of Krishna. Satyam Param Dhimahi, which indicates this is related to the Gayatri mantra. Those who chant the Gayatri mantra. So anyway, that's really. And then the second verse is all about what the book is about. And the first thing, Dharma Projita Kaita Votra. Here in this Bhagavatam, we kick out all the cheating religions. We're not playing footsie with, Karma Kanda and go to heaven, maybe we'll chant a little Vishnu. Even to the point of wanting liberation. That's another cheat. Some of you may remember, that wasn't recently, but we've been dealing with it. The prayers of Prahlad, he has two verses that personify the spirit of Sankirtan. And one of them is Naibod Vijay Padatarotya Vaitaranyas. Fadbi Yagayana Mahamata Magna Chitta. Is that I'm not at all troubled. He uses the word Udvijay, which he used at the beginning of his instructions to his father. Tatsaudamanne Sudavaya Dema Sada Samugvignadiyam. Udvigna is the same word as Udvijay, a little different form. Anyway, so he says, I'm not at all troubled. But wherever I want, I can chant your glories, Yagayana Mahamata Magna Chitta, and I can immerse myself in an ocean of nectar just by chanting your glories. He's speaking in the Shringadev. I have no problem, But Shocheta, I am lamenting. For what? For all these fools and rascals who are trying to enjoy Maya Sukhaya. So the next verse he says, I'm not going to leave them. For the most part, these munis, these so-called learned scholars, they're svabhamukti kama. He calls it a type of kama, a type of lust for their own mukti. What's so noble about I'm going to escape from birth and death and leave everyone else behind? There's no nobility in that. There's no compassion. It's a kind of material desire. A desire to be free of all pain is also a material desire. Sometimes that's your only desire. Suppose you have an accident, you're in the hospital, you're in traction, Oh, if I could just get out of this. I've been here for a week and a half, My only wish, my only desire is to get out of this hospital and get free from all of this stuff. Now, when you actually get out, it's not just that's it. I'm just going to sit down on the curb here, and I'm free. No, you have a life to lead. But the point is that desire is a selfish desire. That's why Sridhar Swami at the beginning, he says part of the cheating religion is that which leads to one's personal liberation and has no aspect of trying to help others. So Prahlad is saying that I'm not going to be like that. Simply wanting my own liberation. Because I see, oh my Lord, that there's no hope for them except you. And I have to give them you. This is the consciousness of the preacher. He has no problems, Krishna conscious. Just like Prabhupada, he could have stayed in Vrindavan and just chanted Hare Krishna, like so many of his god brothers, But he had this burning desire instilled in him by his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, to preach in English, to preach in the West, to see if he could help some of these Jagai Marais who populate the earth. So that's the real, most dear person to Krishna, as he says at the end of this book. Nachatasma manusheshe kastame priya kurtama. There's no one more dear to me than one who risks life and limb, really, to give my lesson, to teach my, word. The truth that I give in the Bhagavad Gita to widely. So we should see ourselves and see the world this way, that people are wandering around in total ignorance, identifying by their particular body, the color they have, their age, their caste, a million different things, where they're born, right? Even gender, it's ultimately illusory. So we want to try to live on the platform of pure spirit, meaning remembering Krishna and our relation with Krishna, and use our senses, our mind, intelligence, whatever else we have, in glorifying Krishna, in spreading His glories. And just like this song we sing every morning, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Now, Prabhupada gave us that song, and Narottam Das Thakur, to sing for the Guru Puja. And the first translation we had from the old songbook, I was there when they printed in the Brooklyn Temple, where the press was, 1974, maybe it was, 73. And the translation was by Chutananda Swami, who had lived in India, learned Bengali, like that. But he wasn't that expert. And the translation we have, that we just like I did a little editing on it. You've noticed that on the board. We've all got that down. May my only wish be to have my consciousness purified, rather than my only desire is to have my consciousness purified. Isn't it obvious why doesn't work? That's a pure devotee. We're standing in front of the deities, or sitting, and we're saying something that isn't true. I cannot say my only desire is to have my consciousness purified. I'm trying to move toward that. See what I'm saying? So that's not Prabhupada's translation. That's, So there's another part of it. There's mistakes in it. So one of the verses, what does it say? Guru Mukha Padmavacha Chitate Kuriya Arna Kuriya Manayashe Shri Guru Chadana Rate Ese Utamagati Ye Pasari Purisavasha. Then Chakudan Dilo Ye Janme Janme Prabhu say. Right? Birth after birth, He who opened my eyes, gave me the eyes of truth, is my Lord. This is the idea. We have this. It's not just one birth. Janme Janme Dibya Gyan. Now here, this is the key. Dibya Gyan Vride Prokashito. It doesn't mean that he's emanating prema. That's a nice thought. It's true. We say it. But what it means is he awakens transcendental knowledge, or divine knowledge in our hearts. Divya Gyan Vride Prokashito. Prema Bhakti Yahahoite. Now it says he emanates prema bhakti. From that knowledge is coming the prema bhakti, when we understand it and we live it. Prema bhakti jahoiti abhijya vinasayati, and destroys ignorance. Abhijya is ignorance, right? Vinasayati. Ye prasadi. What's the last line? Yeah. What is it? Charito. Okay, so all the Vedas are chanting your glories. Yeah, but that is an important element, that the knowledge that we're trying to develop here is giving us the capability of attaining pure love for Krishna. Now, of course, there's an element of just pure mercy, that is also involved, and that is that without knowing all the intricacies of all the rasas and everything, which we should try to understand from the Chaitanya Charitamrita as far as possible. If we're sincere in our service, we can be blessed with love and affection for Krishna, even without all that knowledge. But the knowledge is important because it gives us a firm foundation for our faith. It's easy in this crazy world we're in. It's easy to be swept away by the powerful modes of nature. Now we have I've been giving this class since time immemorial. It seems like 89 since I got here, and before that in Miami, so you go back to 83, it's almost 40 years now. Even the evening Bhagavad Gita classes, wherever I am, I try to do. So, I don't know if you were here. Were you here when Padmavati was here? You remember her? Anyway, you remember Padmavati. So she used to come to my class, when I used to sit in the corner there. And I told her, Padmavati, I can't give classes to one lady. You have to have someone else. So she would drag this person, that person. But the point is, we hardly had anyone here. There was no internet, it was just whoever was able to come. I remember Mahamuni. You remember Mahamuni? He used to come. He's a big guy. He was an old devotee and he was living here. And he used to come. Arya Siddhanta, he started coming when he was at Bhakta. And later he took initiation, did a lot of service. Anyway, the point is that whoever, there's not a lot of people beating down the door. Let's put it that way. To really find it's nice that we have an audience there and that there's a nice group of people. It's very enlivening. But my whole point is that we should take advantage of this. We have such an opportunity. We have the books, we have the classes, we have association. Try to cultivate the knowledge as much as possible, so that you can, as I said here, you can change the way you see yourself and see the world. You can see through the eyes of Shastra. This idea is Shastra Chakshus. And here, this idea that no one ever really mixes with the material energy. And we should ourselves feel that we're kind of riding on this car of the material body. And we should keep it healthy, proper rest and food and everything like that, get the vaccination. And I'll never understand it anyway. I'm just praying that somehow we get through this without any disasters. But the idea is that we have a great opportunity. I heard the lecture today, and Prabhupada was emphasizing the idea of not wasting time. I think it may have been an initiation lecture, and which are very special. He's really speaking strongly, about not breaking the regs, because by the time this was like 76, 75, some devotees had come and gone, even some of his leaders, And so he was seeing that it's not a given that that you can follow these things for all one's lifetime. It takes a lot of determination. But the whole idea is, I got a distinct sense. He was emphasizing the point, and he quoted Chanakya Pandit. It's very interesting. Prabhupada was trained with Chanakya Pandit, right? Chanakya Pandit. There's nothing there directly about Krishna, but all of these rules very much pertain to bhakti. And you can't buy back even a second with 1,000,000, tons of gold. In other words, the time is very precious. And one of the symptoms of bhava, really, is not wasting any time, not wasting a moment, and always using it for furthering one's own Krishna consciousness or giving Krishna consciousness to others. So we kind of went a little far afield from this verse, but we're almost to the end of the chapter. Any local questions yet? Bhakta Daniel. You have the mic. You have the floor. There you go.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. My question kind of relates to the whole time factor of reincarnation. So how does one, if one is being reincarnated, let's say I didn't successfully went back to Godhead in this life, can I reincarnate in some time and point before that is right now in this present moment? Meaning that, is it only linear, or can you go?
This comes from reading too much science fiction. No, we don't read about any of like twisting the time around like that. Yeah, it's time is going forward.
So just a straight.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Surrender to it. But what I thought you were going to say, and you go next, Bob. And this is something very interesting about transmigration of the soul, because you read about, when you read the fifth canto, at the end of this fifth canto, there's, I think, was it one chapter or two, about the hellish planets. And, if you do this, if you do, illicit sex, then you have to, for 10 million years, you have to embrace a red-hot iron form of the opposite sex, or something like that. And there's planets that are just like hot copper, and you can't get. Will they throw you down? Yeah. You remember that one? Okay. Yeah. Or I forget what the sin is. They throw you off a mountain. It's all rocks. But you don't die then, because you're in your subtle body. So you get thrown off again and again and again and again. It's just. So, and it says, for 10 million years you got to be. But then you hear about you going to your next body. In other words, what this shows is that time is practically infinitely malleable, meaning the sense of time. Just like we have the most famous example that, you read the Krishna book and you come to the chapter, I forget the number, 13, where Krishna kills the Gasra and Brahma witnesses it, and then they have the picnic. And he comes down and he steals the calves, he steals the boys, and there's Krishna's all along, right? So he knows Brahma did it, So he says, well, okay, there's a dilemma here because I can't go alone back to the village. Well, the mothers will freak out and the cows will freak out. So what does he do? He expands himself into all the calves and boys, the most amazing thing. And nothing, we're good, all the boys go home and the calves go home and the parents don't know anything. It's such a perfect imitation of all of those calves and boys. So that goes on for a whole year. And then there's this amazing thing that Balaram doesn't even know what's going on until Krishna explains it to him. But Balaram is an expansion of Krishna. Isn't he omniscient? Anyway, so that's a puzzle the Acharyas probably solved. But the point is, it's a whole year. But for Brahma, it's just like a split second, A moment later, he says, well, I wonder how they're doing, So he goes down. It's no different. I thought I put him in, and then he goes to the cave or whatever, and there the boys sleeping, and there's the calves. So his, he lives for... Who can say? How many trillions of years? No, you're short. Trillion and 40 billion. Yeah, which when you get that high, 40 billion is a rounding error. You don't worry about it. So, but he thinks, to him, that's 100 years. In other words, he has a sense it's 100 years. So you can see how malleable it is. So in between this body, when you leave this body and you take the next body, a lot can happen in that little interval, and it seems like a long, long time to you. And that's what counts, how long it seems. If you're now, conversely, I never heard this, that if you're on the heavenly planets, you're enjoying like anything, and even though it may take, millions of years, it really seems like a split second. But if you're in the hellish planets, you're suffering like anything, and even though it is a second, it seems like a million years. But anyway, the point is that transmigration of the soul is quite inconceivable. But it all takes place linearly, and what determining factor is, again, we can never emphasize it too much, is the state of your mind, your consciousness when you leave the body. So we're working toward that final exam, and we don't know exactly when it'll be. So therefore, we have to be as Krishna conscious as possible, as much as possible. Bob, you have the floor. Yeah, push it on real hard, up, all the way. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay, you mentioned Prahlad Maharaj. He refuses to leave with all these conditioned souls, unknowing.
Yes.
About
Krishna.
About Krishna. I wanted to. It kind of made me reflect. I knew a little boy. He was about 5 years old when I met him. Outstanding personality. He wasn't the kind of child that always tried to distract you. He was very inquisitive and very observant. Well, at age 7, he acquired a brain tumor that only 7 and 8 year old children get.
Really?
And there was 0 success rate.
Wow.
So, knowing that his days were numbered, like the Make-A-Wish Foundation took him under their arm and did a lot of events. And well, his attitude was, I'm glad that God gave me this tumor because I was able to, uplift other children and help children in the future with this tumor. Knowing that he was going to leave his body, he was very at peace with it.
Wow.
Well, I mean, that to me, just his personality alone from before the tumor, he was outstanding, and he had a terrible mother, but I mean, that would be indication of a truly saintly person, wouldn't it?
That's kind of what it reminds me. Here's a person in the mode of goodness, who's really empathetic for others. But he's a 7-year-old kid. He really doesn't know that the best thing he could do is to try to give Krishna consciousness to somebody, but he wants to help them. So that's the kind of birth where he'll probably get a very good birth, or did get a very good birth after that. I don't know if he went to the heavenly planets or not, but it's all mode of goodness stuff, which is good, but without Krishna consciousness, it ultimately brings you stay in this material world. But it's the kind of attitude that if he had Krishna consciousness there, it would be, he would be very Krishna conscious, and he would be ecstatic, and he would be giving Krishna. Okay, I'm going to leave that at that. Tyler, you have something.
I had a comment, and then I had a question too. The comment was, I've heard what you described as the experience of different times based on where you're at as called relative time.
Yeah.
And relative to your situation, whether in your example, whether you're in hellish planet or heavenly planet. A good thing I learned to try to conceive of what that experience is like is as we get older, we have the sense that maybe time is moving faster.
Absolutely.
And it's because when we're young and you've only lived 5 years, a year is a long time. 'Cause you've
You're
only
still
lived
young,
5 years.
believe me, son. When you get to be my age.
So when you're
Time is
40, you've
zipping
lived
by.
40 of those years. A year is less significant than when you're 5, right? It's a fifth of your
That's
life.
the way I always thought. It's the
Yeah.
percentage that that's going by. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you're 5, I'm not 5. I'm 5 1/4. He's 5.
So it's interesting to think that in relation to the pleasure, the pain that we're experiencing, that determines whether the time is moving fast or slow. Based on not how many years you've actually living, but if it's so good, time is, it feels like it's slow or it's whipping by.
When
in
you're
the
having a
heavenly
good
planets.
time, generally it goes faster.
Yeah, and in the hellish planets, yeah. It's like
Going
you're at
very
work and you
slow.
look and 5 minutes went by, but you're being tortured and you're like, okay, how long has it been? Oh no, 3 minutes. This is going to be a long
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, we want to try to avoid that situation. If
So
possible.
there's this question I've actually had through most of this chapter, and this the text itself gives a good opportunity to ask it, and it's about the soul situated in Brahman vision.
Yeah.
So I, in the definition, and I looked it up because they talked about the 3 aspects of it earlier, but if you look in the glossary, it defines a 4th aspect. So we have the individual soul, the impersonal, all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the Mahat Tattva, or the total material substance.
Okay.
So we're talking about Brahman vision here. My greater question is, how is Brahman those 4 things, and why? And then how does this relate to Brahman vision? It's just interesting that this one word is these 4 very different aspects, and then we have a vision.
Yeah,
of
well,
Brahman.
I'm not sure the connection here. You're taking this one phrase, Brahman vision. You may be reading more into
Well,
it.
it's like the soul situated in Brahman vision, meaning we've achieved this vision of Brahman, but we have
no.
4 aspects.
I think he's referring to what's been described in the previous verses, Prabhu, which is that. 'Cause don't forget, the super soul is also Brahman. I'm Brahman. You're Brahman.
Yeah.
Aham Brahmasmi. So this Brahman vision is what's being mentioned in those. Remember, I mentioned 28, 29, 30.
Mhm.
One who can see.
super
One who
soul?
sees the super soul equally
Yeah.
present in every year. That's what he's talking about. That's
But-
what Brahman vision.
So then my question, if just not related to that made me realize I had a question about Brahman, which is how is that one word, these 4 aspects, like how is that concept 4 different things all at once? Brahman.
The Brahman.
Yeah. All these different
Well,
things. Which
Brahman
are
is very broadly defined sometimes. Just like you have, what's that verse? Yasya prabhapa bhavato jagadhanda koti shrishesa vasudhari vibhuti bhinnam. This is describing the Brahman effulgence, Brahma Samhita. And it says this is actually the effulgence of Krishna's body. But it describes how that Brahman is creating the whole universe. And when Krishna describes his, in the next chapter, at the beginning actually, he's saying, Aham bija pradakpita. And he's also described, says it in terms, Mama Yone Mahad Brahma. This is text 3 of the next chapter. The total material substance called Brahman, you see, is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings. So Brahman, in its most generic sense, indicates something very great. It may mean different things in different contexts. That's the idea. Just like I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. Right? Is one of the first things you learn in the ashram, and you work in the Hare Krishna temple. You are spirit, not matter. That's the beginning of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm Brahman, you're Brahman, right? But at the same time, there's the Brahma Jyoti, which is infinitely large. Well, I'm not infinitely large. I'm minute. But I'm that. I am that spirit, and the nature is identical with the infinite Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti, the pure spirit. You see what I'm saying? But it's a particle of spirit. So I can say I'm Brahman, but at the same time, this Brahma Jyoti, which is all pervading, is also Brahman. There's a broad spectrum of things that the term Brahman covers.
How does it relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Because we don't really hear Krishna often called that, though.
No, but he's called Para Brahman. Param Brahma in chapter 10. Arjuna, after these, the beginning of the 10th chapter, there's these 4 essential verses, And Krishna says, I am aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam prabhartate. Everything is coming from me. I'm the source of everything. The wise who know this well worship me with all their hearts. And then he goes on to say, how do they worship? Matchitta madgata prana. Their minds are fixed on me. Their life energy is devoted to me, and they spend their time glorifying me together and enjoying spiritual happiness. To those who are always worshiping me this way, with love and devotion, I give the intelligence by which they come to me. With the shining lamp of knowledge, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy the darkness of ignorance. And then the next verse, Arjuna speaks. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan. Bhavan means you. You are the supreme Brahman. And Prabhupada will make the point. We are Brahman, but we're not Para Brahman. We are spirit, but we're not the supreme spirit. So that we have to distinguish that. Krishna is infinite, we're infinitesimal. So, but the quality is the same. That whole idea is that just like the sun and the sunshine, we're a ray of sunshine, but we're not the sun. We're like a drop of water of the ocean, but we're not the ocean. But the quality is the same. So that's how we can both be Brahman, but the characteristics can be so widely different, you know. Okay, we have to move on. I'm sensing somehow or other that Vijay Krishna is not with us tonight. We would have heard from him already, I think. But Dhanavari is here in the I don't want to say flesh, but you're in person. So let's have your question. Is it on? Push it up really hard as you can.
Hello, Hare Krishna.
There you go.
Thank you, Prabhu. My quick question. You just said that in
Hold it real close and speak loudly.
okay, now we can hear.
That's
Okay,
better.
in Brahma Jyoti there is a Vaikuntha Loka. Brahma Jyoti.
Yeah, the Brahman effulgence is all around the Vaikuntha planets, but it's there, you know. But that's not the essence of the Vaikuntha planets. Are a planet of themselves, but everything is brilliant and self-illuminating. And that self-illumination is the Brahma Jyoti. That's what this verse says. Yasya Prabha. This Prabha, this effulgence, is the effulgence of Govinda's body. So that, you know, that's shining, is very brilliant. So that's also illuminating the Vaikuntha world.
So just illuminating, but that doesn't mean Vaikuntha. When we say we'll go to Vaikuntha, but Vaikuntha is in Brahma Jyoti, it's just the lights, it's not Vaikuntha planet actually?
Yeah. The Brahma Jyoti has an aspect where there's no planets, where it's just the shine, the effulgence. And that's where the impersonalists like to hang out. They don't like the varieties. This nirvishesha. Vishesha means variegatedness or variety. Mm-hmm. So this nirvishesha means I want to go where there's no variety, where there's no you know, it's just pure consciousnness. I like to compare it to this sensory deprivation chambers. You know, well, it's perfect temperature. You know, that's but how you can't be happy there? There's no Krishna. There's no bhakti. There's nothing to do, except simply I am that I am. I'm not dying. I'm not getting old. How can you go with not? You know, neti.
But why is it saying that it's Vaikuntha? It's just a light Vaikuntha. It shines on.
The light is there,
Light
self-illuminating, you know, the planet.
But it's not Vaikuntha actually planet, right? You said it's not.
No. The Brahman. If you're talking about Brahma Jyoti, is not a planet. There's nothing going on. There's no people. There's no animals. There's nothing.
Okay, thank you.
All there is that you're there, conscious, free of birth and death. How wonderful. Not good enough. That's why it says. What is it? Ye vindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhavad abhishuddha buddhaya aruha krishna padang padattata patanchado anaditi yushmarangriya. The demigods are praying to Krishna in the womb. Devaki is about to give birth to Janmashtami, just about this time. Mm-hmm. And one of the verses they say, besides the bhaktas, O Lord, O lotus-eyed Lord, there are others who think themselves liberated, but they're of impure intelligence because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. So by great austerities, by suppressing the senses and controlling the mind, a very few of them can rise up to the spiritual platform, Brahman. But patantyadho, they fall down because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. So to be very simple, here's the final conclusion. There's no mukti without bhakti. That's it. And therefore, all of this idea of, you know, having some kind of spiritual advancement without bhakti to Krishna, you're not going anywhere.
Thank you
All
so
glories
much,
to the
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Hare Hare. So now I'll have kirtan to the and see the beautiful forms of Radha Giridhari. All right, so we'll resume on Monday with text 34. Keep a note of that. You got it? Okay, you're our official scribe.